So in the absence of Chair Bailey, I'll call this meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. And so the first item of business I am looking for would be a motion that the Committee of Adjustment hereby appoints Committee Member Sype to chair the January 17th, 2022 Committee of Adjustment hearing. So do I have
I
a
can make the motion. Anita.
So Committee Member Van Hitterson moves and a seconder. Committee Member Heffer seconds that. So just bear with me here. So that'll be a recorded vote. So Committee Member Sype?
Yes.
Committee Member Falconer?
Yes.
Committee Member Heffer?
Yes.
Committee Member Van Hitterson?
Yes.
Committee Member Palmer? Committee Member McBurney?
Yes.
So that motion carries 6-0. So Committee Member Sype, feel free to take over as chair.
Thank you, Carson. So just before we actually start, I just want to acknowledge like to begin by acknowledging that the land in which we gather is a traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Waukee, Ottawa, and Mississauga peoples. So we move on to the confirmation of the agenda. And there's a recommended motion there that the Committee of Adjustments hereby accepts the agenda for January 17th public meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? I've got Member Faulkner moving. I've got Member Palmer seconding. We'll pass it over to the clerk.
Thank you, Chair Sype. So Committee Member Falconer?
Yes.
Committee Member Heffer?
Yes.
Committee Member Van Hitterson?
Yes.
Committee Member Palmer?
Yes.
Committee Member McBurney?
Yes.
And Chair Sype.
Yes.
So that motion carries 6-0.
So moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the previous Committee of Adjustments meeting.
So if I could just back you up, Chair Sype, so just
Sorry,
declaration of pecuniary
yep. I apologize. There's a question about declaration of pecuniary interest. Is there any that does anybody have any declaration they wish to declare? None noted. So thank you, Clerk Lamb. So we'll move on to those approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. So there is a recommended motion there. Is there somebody who would like to move that the Committee of Adjustments hereby adopts the minutes from the Committee of Adjustments hearing held November 1st, 2021 as presented? I've got Member Van Hitterson moving, and I've got Member Heffer seconding. Clerk Lamb?
So Committee Member Heffer?
Yes.
Committee Member Van Hitterson?
Yes.
Committee Member Palmer?
Yes.
Committee Member McBurney?
Yes.
Committee Member Falconer?
Yes.
And Chair Sype.
Yes.
So that motion carries 6-0.
Okay, just want to acknowledge that that any decision reached by this committee cannot be used as a set of precedent. And we've got scheduled applications. We've got file number MV06-2021, which is the location is part of Block B, registered plan number 410, Wingham Ward, Township of North Huron, 40 Josephine Street. The applicant and the owners is Antec Design and Engineering, care of Candice Michuki. I apologize if I said that wrong. And 2441716 Ontario Inc., care of Tao Kang. So I will pass it on to Hannah for the presentation from the Huron County Planning.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for having me this evening, committee. I will just take a moment to share my presentation. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see that okay. So as stated, the next application is MV0621. The following shows a 2020 aerial imagery of the subject lands located on Josephine in the southern portion of Wingham. The subject variance is in support of permitting a pet supply store as an additional use on the property. The use is proposed to be located in one of the units of the shopping plaza that will be constructed as part of phase 2 of the development of these lands. The portion of the property subject to the variance is currently zoned highway commercial. Which permits a variety of highway commercial uses, such as a building, supply and sales establishment, hardware store, brewers, retail outlet, but specifically does not identify a pet supply store as identified use. And the use, again, is proposed to be located in one of the units of the phase 2 shopping plaza to be constructed. The following shows site photos of the property taken earlier this month, just showing the property in this lower photo here from Josephine Street, and then from within the plaza on that upper photo. I've also included site photos that were taken as part of a previous planning report on this file by previous planner Monica Walker-Bolton from summer 2021, just to provide some perspective on what the site looks like without some snow. Again, the requested variance specifically is to permit an additional use that will allow for the retail of pet supplies. So defined as a pet supply store. This use is defined, is not otherwise defined in the North Huron zoning bylaw. So as such, the applicants have provided the proposed definition as follows: a building or structure, a part thereof in which pet food, pet supplies, pet accessories, foodstuffs for animal, pet accessories, various animals, and accessory uses therefore too are sold. The following shows a site sketch of the property. So the proposed use is proposed to be located in one of the units in what is being called phase 2 of the development. So shown here highlighted in red. Council may recall that last summer there was site plan approval given to this building. And then you have phase 1, which contains a portion of is the existing McDonald's. The application was considered against the 4 tests of a minor variance, which is whether it is minor in nature, desirable for the appropriate development of the lands in question, meets the intent of the North Huron official plan and the North Huron zoning bylaw. As per my report, the application satisfies these 4 tests. Primarily, the proposed use is very similar in nature to other permitted uses in the current zoning on the property for highway commercial uses, and the use is not specified to be exclusively zoned elsewhere. So as such, my report concludes that the application satisfies these 4 tests of a minor variance. In terms of comment, township staff did provide comment that they had no concerns. Maitland Valley Conservation Authority did provide comments indicating that they have no concerns. And as of current and the time of report submission, no comments were received from neighbors or members of the public. So as such, it is recommended that the application be approved subject to the one following condition, and that's that the variance approval is based on the definition of the use provided in the application and in this presentation. And then secondly, once council is able to make a decision, a motion to the effect of public and agency comments will be required, just as a reminder. So I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Okay, so we'll move on to the opportunity to comment on the application by the applicant or its agent. I think I heard Candace here. Does she?
I am here. No, I want to say that Hannah covered it really well. And as such, I have no further comment unless there's some specific questions that the committee would like answered.
Okay, thank you, Candace. So an opportunity to comment by others in attendance. Is there anybody else in attendance that might want to comment on this application? I'm hearing none. So I'll move on to the opportunity for questions and comments by the Committee of Adjustment members. Is there anybody? Okay, I've got Member Faulkner would like to ask a question. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, through you, Deputy Reeve. Just a clarification on this zoning change, or not zoning, the permitted use change. Is this, would that have to happen after, like, are we missing an opportunity to make a broader, like add more things to what could be put in there? Or will this have to come back every time something different goes into that building? I'm just wondering, I know it's kind of left out of the description of what's allowed in there, and you named off a few more. Just as a, you know, to clean things up, is there a broader term that could be used for the application for a strip mall, so anything can go in there?
I'll go to Hannah for that question.
Yeah, sorry, that was too handy.
Yes. Thank you. Through the chair. So yes, so specifically right now, the zoning does not permit a pet supply store specifically. So that was why it was identified that they needed a planning application. We determined a minor variance in this case would likely be more appropriate than a full-scale rezoning. Generally in the highway commercial zones, it's a little bit more specific about the types of uses that are permitted. They're generally larger box stores or things to support support the traveling public, so things like gas stations. Whereas more so you'll see in the core commercial, there's a lot more flexibility, and we actually specify retail stores are permitted otherwise unless they have heavy machinery. So generally there's a lot more flexibility provided in the core commercial just to kind of protect those businesses. That's the intent of the policy. In terms of the pet store, that's something that's not, as I mentioned, it's not specifically identified, but that's certainly something that perhaps in a future housekeeping, if it's desired, that we could look at to include that, just to make sure that in the future there's that flexibility given to that you can have similar other big box stores that also can have like pet supply stores versus building supplies. So that's something we can certainly put on a list for a future housekeeping if that's desired.
Any other questions or comments by members of the committee? I'm not seeing any, but I will add a comment, Hannah. So one of the things we are currently going through, and I believe we are going through the zoning bylaw amendments and those types of things right now. I guess what I'm hearing from, you know, Member Faulkner, and I'm kind of looking for other members if they have concerns, is to make sure that we are reviewing that, you know, as part of this amendment, as part of this review of the official plan amendment, look at those types of broader, you know, wordings to make sure that, you know, we're not causing development. You know, obviously this is, you know, kind of a little minor in nature, but it's 2 weeks or whatever. But if they already had the zone in there, then they wouldn't have had to go through this process, and it could have just carried on. Obviously, there's no building there for them to actually have started. But I mean, if there was, then it would have been just another delay from a developer perspective. So my suggestion would be just to review those types of broader things as part of that zoning bylaw amendment, to make sure that we're not, as Member Faulkner has mentioned, is not pigeonholing ourselves to require developers or require businesses to come back to a committee of adjustment or council for things that we know we would want in those types of developments.
If I may, as a developer, with permission, please.
Go ahead, Candace.
So we will actually be having to not only submit for a minor variance, but we're also going to have to go through a rezoning for this property. The minor variance route is for the purpose of making this faster for development, as you alluded to. And then we're going to have to go through a rezoning to permit the other use that is ideally going to go into this building. So it would be great if council and committee members and staff could review that, because from a development perspective, it's rather daunting considering we are not proposing anything different than what's permitted in some other buildings within this zone.
Appreciate your comments there, Candace. I did see committee member Faulkner had his hand up. Did you have something to add,
No, it was actually on that, so through you, Deputy, it was actually on that exact same subject that it was my recollection that there was a study being done as far as the location, for that location, for other purposes. And that was just, it was my question was that going to interfere or duplicate, that process? That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I didn't, so I will go back to Hannah to summarize the comments or recommendations from the Huron County Planning and Development Department, please.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. I will just share my screen again. So in terms of the effect of comments, it is recommended that the committee select option A2, that no public comments were received on the application, so there was no effect on the decision, and that option B3 be selected, that agency comments were received in support of the application, the effect of which resulted in a decision to approve the application.
Sorry, so that was, Hannah, you said it was A2 and B2?
And A2 and B3.
B3, okay. Okay, so I'll move on to number 7 here, where the decision of the Committee of Adjustments and Effects. So the first motion that the committee recommended motion is that the Committee of Adjustments hereby approves the minor variance application MV06-2021 as it applies to part of Block B, Registered Plan number 410, Wingham Ward, Township of North Huron, 40 Josephine Street. Applicant owners Antec Design and Engineering, care of Canis Michuchi, 2441716 Ontario Inc., care of Tao Kang, with a condition set out in the report presented by Hannah Holman, planner at the January 17th, 2020 Committee of Adjustments hearing. Do I have a mover for that one? I got member McBurney move. I got member Faulkner seconding.
Thank you, Chair Sype. So Committee Member Van Hittersum,
Yes.
Committee Member Palmer,
Yes.
Committee Member McBurney,
Yes.
Committee Member Falconer,
Yes.
Committee Member Heffer,
Yes.
and Chair Sype.
Yes.
So that motion carries 6-0.
And just to put in the second motion that the minor variance application MV06-2021 be recommended that from the decision of the chart, which was A2 and B3 from the recommendation from the county planner. Do I have a mover for that? I've got member Palmer and member Van Hittersum seconding.
Thank you, Chair Sype. So your motion would be that for minor variance application MV06-2021, no public comments were received on this application, so there was no effect on the decision, and agency comments were received in support of the application, the effect of which resulted in a decision to approve the application. So Councillor Paul or Committee Member Palmer,
Yes.
Committee Member McBurney,
Yes.
Committee Member Falconer,
Yes.
Committee Member Heffer,
Yes.
Committee Member Van Hittersum,
Yes.
and Chair Sype.
Yes.
So that motion carries 6-0.
Okay, just want to move on to number
Thank
8,
you.
which is, thank you, Candace, which is number 8, reminder of the appeal period. So minor variance procedure following the public meeting. The Secretary Treasurer sends within 10 days a certified copy of the decision indicating the last date of appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal. To the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, if requested, each person who appeared in person or by counsel at the hearing and who filed with the Secretary Treasurer a written request for the notice of decision. If no appeal is lodged after the 20-day objection period has expired and no appeal has been lodged, the decision of the Committee of Adjustments is final and binding. The Secretary Treasurer shall notify the applicant if a notice of appeal is lodged If within 20 days, the Committee of Adjustments making a decision of an appeal is lodged with the Secretary Treasurer outlining the reasons for such appeal, and said appeal is accompanied by a required fee of $400, the Committee of Adjustment no longer retains jurisdiction over the application. If a proper appeal is lodged, the Secretary Treasurer is required to provide proper notice to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Okay, so being that there is no further business before the Committee of Adjustments, the public meeting is hereby adjourned at 5:50 p.m. Do I have a mover of that motion? I've got Committee Member Heffer moves. I got Committee Member McBurney seconds.
Thank you, Chair Sight. So Committee Member McBurney,
Yes.
Committee Member Falconer,
Yes.
Committee Member Heffer,
Yes.
Committee Member Van Hittersum,
Yes.
Committee Member Palmer,
Yes.
and Chair Sight.
Yes.
So that motion carries 6-0.